Good evening. Thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity to present my work for people in Dallas, especially to this building designed by one of my architect I really respect. Tonight I'm going to show you my work from very early stage to the most recent one, including some of the disaster relief projects. I've been working in disaster area. I believe that the natural disaster is no longer natural. I must say they are becoming man-made disaster. For example, earthquakes. Earthquake itself never kill people, but collapse of the building kill people. And that is a responsibility for architects. It's also flooding. Flooding is becoming bigger and more often because of the deforestation. We cut the trees for construction. That's also indirectly responsibility for architects. And after those disasters, always we need temporary houses and permanent houses. That is also a responsibility for architects. So we are really responsible for what's happening all over the world. So tonight I'm going to show you my work, and in the end I will show you some of my disaster relief projects. Can I start my slide, please? After I graduated from Cooper Union in New York, I went back to Tokyo immediately after to start my own practice because I didn't have any working experience. I started designing exhibition, including this one. This is an exhibition for Alberto. Originally, this exhibition was curated in MoMA, and I brought over to Japan because I love Alberto. Because I love his architecture. I went to Finland many times, and I wanted to show some of the example of Alberto's interior into this exhibition. However, I didn't have enough budget to use wood as Alberto always did. Also, I didn't want to waste such a precious material like wood for the temporary use. So I looked for some alternative material, and I found a paper tube made of recycled paper. It was all over my studio. Always, when we finished tracing paper, I kept them because I hate to throw them away. Also, the fax paper roll, always the very strong paper tube is inside, and I all kept it. And then I knew we can make any lengths, different diameters. So here I used a smaller diameter for the ceilings, like Alberto's B-Bridge library, and the larger diameter was used as freestanding partitions. So this was first time I ever used paper tube for the interior. Since this was much stronger than I expected, I started testing it to use for the building structure. Next, please. Also, I developed some of the experimental houses. This is a house called furniture house. Furniture means the closet, bookshelf, cabinet, so on. When I experienced earthquake, some of the people were injured because the heavy furniture fell down on the people. Even some people saved their life when the roof fall down. They are in between the heavy furniture, so that's why the furniture saved the people. So I knew that the furnitures are strong enough to kill people or to save people. Then I thought, why not to just use the furniture as the main structure of the building? This is the prototype. The width is 3 feet, and the height is 8 feet, and the depth is depending the type of the furnitures. Already insulation is installed, painted inside, outside. And next, please. And we just make the basic foundation. I bring into the already built furnitures and connecting furniture with foundation vertically and horizontally. Next, please. In one day, all the furniture unit are installed and already is finished. Next day, we put the roof and finishing the inside. Next, please. And we don't need to depend on the skilled carpenter. Anybody can build it very easily. Whatever you see, the cabinet, bookshelf, all of them are structured, the the cabinet brought in. Next, please. Also, I used the same idea differently in China when I was asked to design the house over there. Because I was not allowed to do the construction administration. So I decided to use this furniture system because I don't have to supervise the construction. I just have to supervise the quality of the furniture in the factory. Also, I wanted to use some local material since timber was rather expensive in China. And I found some plywood made of bamboo. So I decided to make a laminated bamboo, and I made some sample, brought back to Japan to test it. And laminated bamboo was much stronger than wood. So this time I made the furniture structured with laminated bamboo, and the finish outside, and next please, also inside, everything is finished with bamboo. So it's structurally, it's a furniture made of bamboo and finished with bamboo. Next, please. And this is a recent furniture house built in Long Island, called in Sagaponack. This house is further developed the furniture because the previous system, the furniture was made of the so-called 2x4 balloon frame structure with plywood. This time, next please, there is no frames. There is only plywood with a finger joint. So three sides of the furniture itself support for the vertical force and the lateral force. There is no framing inside of this furniture. Next please. And also the furniture idea was further carried on to the other the project. This is also the recent project. It's a library for some university. I was asked to make rather classical order because of all the other building in campus is the classical building is a brick. And when I designed this library, I put all the bookshelves right and left, and the middle part is kind of the reading space, atriums. Next, please. And because this atrium has a kind of floating the meeting space in classrooms, and both sides of the building, next please, there's the shelves. Actually, this precast concrete shelves. Actually, we just put the steel shelves to make the bookshelf like this. So this precasted structure used as a bookshelf to support the floor by itself. So that without any structure, just bookshelf itself become main structure of the building. Next, please. And also this is the idea is similar to the furniture house system. Instead of using furniture, I use a container. This is the museum called Nomadic Museum for the Canadian photographer Gregory Colbert. He asked me to design the museum which travel country to country and city to city. This was in New York 2 years ago on the wooden pier, and the main idea is how to make the building transportable economically, because this building is over 60,000 square meter. It's very expensive to build, dismantle, and transport all the building material to next city. So my idea is using a shipping container as a main structure. This is a used shipping container. We just borrowed in the other side of the river in New Jersey. We just used local container only during the period of exhibition. Then after we dismantle, we return to the original position, original place. So that we don't have to carry the container, because this is international standard. Wherever we go, we can borrow the local container. It's the same standard. And I made a checkerboard pattern in order to minimize a number of the container and minimize the weight of the building itself, because it was built on very old wooden pier, and also creating some shadow to emphasize the three-dimensional the nature of the container. Next, please. And the roof is supported by paper tube. It's the diameter is 2.5 feet. The wall thickness is 3/4 inch. It's 10 meter, about 33 feet long. And all the container is connected with the standard connection of the container. Next, please. This is the main corridor with Gregory's photo in between the columns. Next, please. Then last year, this was museum brought to the Los Angeles Santa Monica Pier, and because of the size of the site is different. In New York, it was just a linear building, but in Santa Monica, the site given was almost square. So instead of making one linear museum, I made the two corridors. Also, Gregory asked me to expand the museum with additional theater in between. So I put the two linear galleries and creating a space in between. So without any additional containers, we just put the roof to create a new theater space in between. As you see through, you can see that the gallery is the both sides. Next, please. This is also another temporary museum built in Seoul, in Korea, South Korea. This is also temporary museum. Because it's not supposed to move, I made out of paper tubes and also some 10-feet containers. This is the existing sculpture. This is in Olympic Park. Because of the shape of the site, and also that I was asked to make two different galleries, I made the D shape, creating the gallery with a paper tube, with the gallery with the containers. Even the roof structure is made of 40-feet containers spanning the two walls. Next, please. So this is the container gallery with 10-foot container with 40-feet container as the main the beam, and this is a paper tube gallery with paper tube trusses. Next, please. This is my area houses. Right-hand side it's called Curtain Wall House. Left-hand side is one of my favorite house designed by Mies van der Rohe, Farnsworth House. This Farnsworth House is a revolutionary house in the history of Western architecture. The house building become totally transparent. But if you compare this house with a traditional Japanese house, when we open up all the sliding door, house become also transparent. The difference is the Mies house, as you know, that most of the windows are fixed. There's only one door to go out. So I have to say it's a visually transparent. However, the Japanese traditional houses, when we open up sliding doors, the house become visually transparent, also physically transparent, because all the inside, outside are totally connected. That's the difference between the Miesian transparency and traditional Japanese transparency. When I was asked to design the house, the client was living within a very traditional old Japanese house, enjoying openness and flexibility of the house. So I decided to carry on that kind of openness and flexibility to the new building. And this is just 3-story building, and there's a big terrace with a sliding glass door, so you can open it to connect to the inside with the terrace, and also the outside with the curtain. Next, please. So this curtain works as a shading and also to keep privacy. And when the curtain was blown away, you can extend the limit of your house to the street. And the evening, when you close the curtain, the space is three-dimensionally connected. Also, as you know, the Mies van der Rohe is the architect who invented so-called curtain wall. Curtain wall is glass with the metal the frames for the building. Instead of using Miesian curtain wall, I just use a curtain to design a curtain wall house. Next, please. This is a house called 2/5 house. Name came from geometry of the house. The rectangular, the plan was divided into 5 linear rectangulars, and the 2 of 5s are indoor space. This is the front courtyard outside, and the living room inside, and the middle courtyard outside, and indoor space again, and the exterior space with the green wall. And wherever you see that lines, there are the glass sliding door, which goes outside of the wall to make the space open from wall to wall. Next, please. So this left-hand side photo, this is the view from the front courtyard to the back courtyard. When all the glass sliding door is open, all the spaces are totally connected. And this is the middle courtyard. Occasionally you can close this the membrane to make a semi-indoor space. I put the upper floor like a glass box, just like a Miss van der Rohe's house, in order to compare transparencies between Miesian transparency and the traditional Japanese transparency underneath. Next, please. This is a house called picture window house. Usually picture window is a square window on the wall, framing beautiful landscape like a painting. Instead of making the square picture window on the wall, I made a building itself as a picture window to frame beautiful horizontal ocean view. So the second floor is work as a kind of the truss with the bedrooms to spanning from side to side, and when you open up all the sliding doors, front and back, the garden is connected with the indoor, and then it's connecting to the ocean view. Next, please. As you see, this is a horizontal picture window when the sliding door is open. Next, please. Right-hand side, this is a house. It's a small weekend house for a single person on the hill. It's called the wall-less house without wall. Left-hand side is another my favorite of Miss van der Rohe, Barcelona Pavilion. After this was rebuilt in Barcelona, I went to there several times. It's really amazing building. But if you see carefully this building, it's structurally very ambiguous, because always columns are standing very close to the wall. Then I wonder whether this column is really structure or not, because the wall can be structure, and you don't need maybe columns. So I calculated this the building with just columns, without any walls, and I found out there's enough number of the columns to support the roof. Then I just calculated just with the walls, without any columns, and also they have enough number of the walls to support the roof. So that structurally, the meaning of the columns and the wall is quite ambiguous. For this wall-less house, I tried to clarify or investigate the meaning of the fundamental architecture element, like a column, wall, floor, roof, so on. Next, please. And as this house was built on the hill, usually when you have to build the building on the hill, you have to make a floating platform. But I didn't have a budget to do it. So what I did is just digging half of the ground and put this mud in front to make a flat platform. However, this hill still continues this way. So this wall usually has to be cantilevered concrete retaining wall to support the pressure of the earth. Instead of making cantilever concrete retaining wall, I just made this concrete floor curved. It's just upside down of arch, so that the pressure of the earth is naturally transferred to the floor. So this curvature has a structural meaning. So it's not cantilever heavy retaining wall. It's just part of the floor. It's just curved to transfer the load naturally. And three sides of the house is just the sliding glass door, which can be open. And this canopy can come down to close the window when nobody is here. So we just open up the canopy, open up the sliding glass door to extend the inside the house outside. And there is only 3 very thin columns only 2-inch diameter. And in Japan, we have lots of earthquakes. It's impossible to have such a small column usually. So obviously, it's so small. It's carrying only vertical force. I designed the roof as to get the in-plane stiffness, so that all the vertical force are transferred to the edge of this wall. Actually, this is the part of the floor, so that none of the lateral force come to this column. That's why this column is so small. And besides that, there's no structure, and there's this bathroom open. But when somebody comes, we can close the sliding door to make a private bathroom. Also, this is movable closet. In case somebody comes to stay over, you can just divide the bedroom for the guest. Next, please. This is a house called 9 square grid house. There are the 2 parallel structural cabinets, creating 1 square floor plan, which can be divided into 9 small squares. And these are sliding doors. You can open to just have 1 big square floor, or you can divide into 9 small square, or you can divide into the linear space or middle size of square. Depending on the occasion, depending on the season, you can divide the house differently. Here is only 2 rooms has a name. It's a bathroom and kitchen. Rather than that, there is no room with name, like a bedroom, living room. This could be the bedroom in the summer. It's the northern side, it's cooler in the summer. But in the winter, you can put your bed. South side of the house, it's warmer. In case you fight with your wife, you can separate the bedrooms. Next, please. As you see, this is just 1 square space with all the cabinet and the air conditioning, everything in the inside of the structural wall. You can divide into small rooms. Next, please. This is the Paper Art Museum, the first phase. There are the 2 projects. The first phase was just renovating old factory into the gallery, and second phase is building a new building. First phase, the budget was very limited. What I did is only the limited things, just removing the existing wall, exposing the existing the steel columns, and I put standard overhanging garage shutter with fiberglass panels. Usually, overhanging shutter, when it's open, it comes inside of the space. But instead of doing that, I just put the other way around. So when it's open, the shutter goes out like this, in order to create nice canopy to connect inside outside with some intermediate space in between. So it's nothing special, it's just standard element was used differently. Next, please. And this is second phase of the Paper Art Museum. And it looks like 1 building, but actually the 2 structure, individual structure, south side, 3 floor of administrations, and the northern the structure is a 3-story of the galleries, just connected with a bridge and also membrane roof. And this shutter, this is another industrial shutter with double glazed fiberglass panels. When museum is open, it's just open. And this is actually the semi-indoor, outdoor space can be used for the exhibition. Next, please. And the south side, or the administration part, you can just open up this lightweight fiberglass panel to make a canopy, and also you can open up all the sliding door to enjoy the garden. Next, please. And also the inside, this, when the museum is closed, this shutter comes down, and also these glass sliding door open totally. When the exhibition is bigger, we just can use the big square space for the exhibition. It's depending on the type of exhibitions you are bringing. Next, please. This is a small restaurant in Tokyo. Again, I used the industrial shutter for this restaurant. When restaurant is closed, this 3-story high glass shutter is closed totally. When restaurant open, this goes up so that you have a door to go in. Next, please. When in fine days, all the shutter goes up, installed inside the roof, so that the restaurant is totally connected with the nice courtyard next door to connect inside, outside totally. Next, please. This is another house for the photographer. I call it shutter house for the photographers. And because site is rather very enclosed, dense area, there's nothing to see outside. Even also, it's difficult to keep the privacy. So it's rather closed house. So that I prepared small courtyard, many area, several different courtyard inside of the site, connecting the inside the house with the courtyard. And this outside wall, all of them are glass shutter. Next, please. So when the glass shutter is closed, you just see the courtyard outside, but when it's open, the living room and dining area is totally connected with the courtyard in front and also side. All the floor are totally connected as one open floors with the living room and dining room and kitchen and so on. Next, please. This is another the house. It's a rather big house. It's over 12,000 square feet house. This is a quite big house for Japan. And this is a porch and parking, living room and swimming pool and bedrooms and courtyard. I want to see the courtyard from everywhere. And this is the grandmother's quarter and the family room and kitchen. Next, please. This is the entrance porch. You come into the entrance. Next, please. Then this is the main living rooms. And again, this is the glass shutter. When it's open, the living room is totally connected with the swimming pool. You can jump into the swimming pool from the living room directly. Next, please. And this is the family room. Again, this is the shutter connecting the family room with another the landscape outside. Next, please. This is the most recent project just built in Ginza, Tokyo, the most expensive land in the world. And sorry, this is not professional photo because it's just finished. And this is a building for the Swatch group in Switzerland. Swatch, as you may know, they own many brand names like Omega, Tissot, Calvin Klein, Blancpain, Jacquard, whatever you name it. Most of them are Swatch group. And this was an international competition. I was very lucky to win because I didn't respect the program. I usually respect the given program, but this time I thought that the program given was not very nice, and I took a risk to propose totally differently. This is a building for the 9 different brand name boutiques, Swatch, Omega, so on, and also customer service, office, and also event space on top. And the given program said because of the narrow width of the building, they can have only 2 boutiques on the ground floor, 2 boutiques on second, 2 on third, and 2 on fourth, and basement, so that only 2 boutiques has a chance to expose to the street. So I thought that is unfair for the boutiques which has to go to the basement or second, third, fourth floor, but that was the way it is. Then I just made my own. I took a risk to just change it totally. What I did is designing all the facade with, again, the huge glass shutter. It's totally open in a fine day to create semi-indoor, outdoor space. And the ground floor is 4-story high, open space, connecting the front street with the back street. There's another back street. And I created a passage for semi-public passage inside of the building. It's the most expensive land in the world. It just used as a passage, not for the store. And next, please. And I put the glass showrooms there are 7 boutiques of showrooms has some latest products, and they are made of the hydraulic elevator. So you go in to see the latest the products, and if you want to see more, you just push button. It goes up and down to connect it to the main boutique. So Brampan goes to the 3rd floor. That's the main boutique of Brampan. And Swatch is the basement. You go down to the Swatch. So there is a 7 glass showcase elevator along this passage to the back street with the vertical the green wall and some terrace coffee, and you can take coffee. So I just try to bring some public space into the inside of the building, and giving the same opportunity to the 7 boutiques. And so I was very lucky to win this competition because I didn't respect the program. Next, please. This is also customer service with the green space, and this is the top event space. I will show you my latest project, Pompidou Center in Metz. I make a similar structure in timber. I just did a similar structure in steel this time. It's rather small scale. Next, please. This is some housing project I did before. This was existing site. This was existing site with many trees. I promised with my client I don't want to cut any trees. So then I try to put some kind of the structural grid in order to make a building economical. But any square grid or rectangular grid didn't fit into this condition without cutting the trees and the roots. So because the position of the trees are rather arbitrary, and I found out finally the triangular grid, and which gives him more freedom to decide which beams has to be eliminated because of the existing trees and the roots, because I cannot cut the roots either. Let's say if you have the square grid, the usual square grid, there is 4 beam is intersecting to support the columns. At least you need 3 beams to stiffening the columns, so you can eliminate only 1. But if I take, because I took the triangle grid, the 6 beams are intersecting, so still you can eliminate 3, remaining 3 the beams to stiffening the column. So that because of 6, you have more freedom to eliminate which one you need to remove because of the condition of the trees and the roots, so that I could have the opening wherever the trees are. Next, please. This is 3-story high duplex apartment. There are 11 apartments. Each one has their own entrance on the ground floor in the pilotis. This photo was taken in the winter. That's why you can see the holes. But in the summer, because the leaves cover all the roof, making a shading on the roof. So it's very cool in the summer. Next, please. This is a house called Naked House. House was built on middle of the rice field, and the request of the client was very unique. They said they want to have a big living room, and actually, first of all, they said they want to have the house like a greenhouse, which exists in the neighbor area, and also they want to have a big living room, common space to share with their family member, and they said they don't care having they don't need a big private room with privacy, because they like to spend most of their time in the big common space. And so because they wanted a house like a greenhouse, so I used the material used in greenhouse. This is the fiberglass, corrugated fiberglass panel, but I made 2 layers vertically and horizontally to stiffening each other, and also to keep the air gap in between for the insulation. And also inside the wall, I made my own translucent insulation material using kind of the noodle shape of the foam core, which is usually used for the packing of the fruits, put in the plastic, the clear bag. And also I made the extra layer with the bubble packing material to make additional layer, but still translucent. Next, please. So inside, as you see, the wall is all translucent. And there is the 4 small individual spaces with the traditional Japanese tatami mat. And the 2 sides of the room are made of the sliding door, which can be removed to connect all the rooms together to make linear tatami rooms. And grandmother doesn't like air conditioning. Actually, it's impossible to put air conditioning inside of the movable box. And also, as I said, the grandmother doesn't like air conditioning, but small child like air conditioning. These are air conditioning unit for the common space. So if you want to have your air conditioning, just you move your box, attaching your box to the air conditioning, so that this become your individual air conditioning. And also there is no window, but if you want to see outside, just you move your box attaching to the window. It's become your private window. Next, please. And all the box can go outside to the garden. Sometimes they make some lecture, so this totally open space, and kids can play and study on top of their own boxes. Next, please. This is 6-story office building in Osaka, Japan. This time I invented the fire protection for steel in wood. This is a picture showing the testing process to get the government permission. I took advantage of the characteristic of wood as a fire protection. This is steel column with plywood. So I wanted to use the wood as a fire protection for steel and also final finish of the room building itself, so that we can eliminate many materials. Usually we have to spray ugly fire protection, and this has to be covered by gypsum board, and you finish with the wood, timber, stone, whatever. So there are many layers. As you know, the wood doesn't transfer the heat easily. So first of all, the heat cannot go to the heat is not transferred to the steel easily. But when the temperature goes much higher, of course, wood can be burned. Then it's become charcoal, and the charcoal is a perfect fire protection material. So I tested this method by testing, and I found out 1 inch thickness of the plywood works as a half-hour fire protection, and the 2 inch thickness of the plywood works as 1 hour fire protection. Next, please. So the building was finished with this plywood. Depending on the level, the thickness has to be adjusted depending on the fire regulation. So this and then works as the final finish of the interior itself. Next, please. And also I work with plywood because plywood is so cheap and strong. I made a kind of the pre-vented arch with the plywood. It's called the LVL, laminated veneer lumber, to make a kind of woven feeling with the vertical and horizontal the plywood. And in order to, this is a small daycare center for the hospital. And in northern Japan with heavy snow, I made, because it's so thin, it can be moved, deflected by wind. I put the timber frame connecting with the steel lattice truss, stiffening each other, and finishing with the corrugated stainless steel and fiberglass material to bring light inside. Next, please. And in the summer, the space gap between the square and the round shape, we just ventilate hot air in the summer, and in the winter we just keep the hot air inside for the insulation, and the natural light comes into this daycare center. Next, please. And same hospital asked me to design the gymnasium. Because this is it's a residential area, I didn't want to make a big volume on the ground. So I put the main body of the gymnasium underground, and I just put the roof on top of the ground. And again, I use the LVL. I try to minimize the quantity of the timber. This is some diagram, sectional diagram showing, explaining the roof structure. Longitudinal section, you just put arch following the diameter, so that all the section following this curvature. Perpendicular to that, the curved arch put parallelly. So the section is always horizontal. It doesn't follow the curvature. And the two layer of this one, and put the bottom and top, there is a gap because this one is horizontal. And I put small timbers to create the truss. Next, please. So as you see, pre-bent arch is following the curvature, and perpendicular to that, it's almost horizontal, creating the gap and creating the truss with the, additional timbers. And there is the space to bring the natural light inside of the gymnasium. Next, please. And the wall is translucent, bringing indirect light into the swimming pool. Next, please. This is some presentation I submitted for the competition of the Pompidou Center in Metz. Metz is the city near Germany, east side of the Paris. This is the site was quite big, and this is a site plan with a main train station, and this is a very famous cathedral, and this is downtown. It's old town. And our site is the other side of the train station. It's a kind of open space, there's nothing around. First of all, I work with the landscape architects to design the park. Usually we design the building and ask landscape architect to put the trees around, but I did the other way around. I asked landscape architect to put the green park, then I put hut, big roof on top of the green, because I wanted to make the building inside of the museum as an extension of the park. Usually, museum is very symbolic volume, almost saying we only accept entering the academic people who are interested in the art. But I wanted to make this building totally open to public for anyone who even never been to the museum, even just to enjoy the cafe or whatever. So that I wanted just, instead of making box kind of the museum, I wanted to make just big roof and opening the facade open. Do you see this perspective? Or the wall, the facade is made of the glass shutter, as usually I use. It's totally open to connect inside outside. And the roof is this. I will explain you later. This is a hexagon roof, and it's a timber structure. And this is a section of the gallery. As you see, there is 3 gallery tubes. We call tubes, gallery tubes, totally the climate controlled. And end of the gallery, there is a picture window, like my house. Each gallery is directing different direction, because the museum is a little bit away from the center of the city, but I wanted to connect the museum with the city. So the top tube is heading to the main cathedral. So as you see here, you can see the cathedral as a picture window in the end of the gallery. Second tube is heading to the main train station. This main train station was designed when the Metz was occupied by German. So this is a very interesting German architecture. So this become part of the city's monument. So second tube is framing the train station, and third one is framing the future sculpture in front of a train station. Next, please. And this is some of the showing the development of the roof structure. This is the building. It's going in computer graphic. The construction started last November. Supposed to be finished end of next year. The idea of the roof came from the traditional bamboo Chinese hut. When I saw this Chinese hut, I thought this is very architectonic, because woven bamboo is the structure like a roof. And the oil paper is the waterproofing, and underneath there's dry leaves as an insulation. It's just like a roof. So I used this pattern and designed the kind of the filandre wooden truss. And the whole roof shape itself is a hexagon, and also each pattern is a hexagon. As you may know, hexagon is a symbol of France. shape of the country, France, is a hexagon. So that for the French people, hexagon is their symbol. But if I do the competition in Israel, I make different story. Next, please. I made my temporary office on top of the Pompidou Center, designed by Richard Rogers and Renzo Piano. And this is a temporary office built by a student. I brought my Japanese student, work with a French student during summer. We spent 3 months to build by ourselves. Next, please. This is paper tube structure with wooden joint. And this is our the drafting space. And so we just, this tube was donated by the paper tube company, and we just brought the labor student, so it's very inexpensive to build as a workshop. Next, please. By the way, if you have a chance to come to Paris, you are welcome to come to my office. However, you have to buy ticket to see me because my office is part of the exhibition, so you have to buy ticket. This is a very early paper tube structure, 1990. Actually, I started developing paper tube structure in 1986. That time, nobody was talking recycling, environmental, eco-friendly, whatever. It's becoming very trendy. But when I was developing this was just many years before this became fashion. This time, I didn't have a special permission to use a paper to use as a main structure. So there are steel columns supporting the roof, and the paper tube, 330 tubes used as the wall receiving the wind pressure. Next, please. And there is a big diameter tube here. There is a space in between with the plastic the molding to bring light inside. And this is the big tube with diameter is 4 foot diameter. And also the height is over 27 foot high. Even this is used as a toilet. And so ceiling is very high, you get a very good sound effect. And also, in case you finish with your paper, you can tear off inside the wall. Next, please. This is the library edition for Poet House, built 1991. He was very kind to allow me to build as an experimental house without the permission. So I tried the new structure with paper tube, with post-tension structure. Inside it's empty with a cable to put post-tension to connect the wooden joint with the paper tube horizontally and vertically. It's still there, just built 16 years ago. It's still good condition. Next, please. And this is the first permanent paper tube building with government permission. This is a small gallery for Issey Miyake, fashion designer. But before this, I designed my own weekend house in order to get this complicated government permission for paper tube structure. And I spent 1 year to get this permission, but I couldn't afford to build it. But I was very lucky to use this permission for his gallery as a first permanent building. Next, please. It's a simple building with the series of columns creating the shadow. Which move depending on time of the day, and also carved the wall with a small gap over the tubes, which create a nice linear light behind the wall. Next, please. Then finally, I could build my own weekend house, but it was too late. I have no more weekend, so I don't use them. Next, please. This is some structure for the timber company. It's built 1997. This time I made an arch, simple arch with a wooden connection. Every time I design different type of the paper tube structure, I have to test it. I have to get the government permission to build it. Next, please. Then I was very lucky to be chosen as an architect to design the Japanese pavilion for Hanover Expo year 2000 in Germany. I was very lucky also to collaborate with Professor Otto to develop paper grid shell structure. And the main theme of the Expo is the environmental issue, so that the government was expecting me to use a recycled material. But not only using recycled material, I set my goal of the design at the end, when building was demolished. Usually the goal of the building design is when building is completed. My goal was when building was demolished. Because we make a lot of temporary pavilion for Expo and we dismantle them and we create a lot of industrial waste after the Expo. So that I wanted to recycle or reuse all the building material after we demolished the building. So I work with local paper chip company. After we demolish, they collect the paper to recycle again. And this is the picture showing you the process of the lifting the grid shell structure made of paper tube. I didn't want to have the joint connection because it's rather expensive. It's a very long 20-meter, 66 feet long paper tube carried through highway, just connected with the fabric. I'll show you the detail later. And this is the scaffolding. Yellow one, the vertical one, is called the props. We can rotate by hand to push up little by little so that we can create a three-dimensional shape by hand. Next, please. This is the end of the erection. Also, I didn't want to use a concrete foundation. I made a wooden box filled with sand because concrete is rather difficult material to recycle or reuse. And there is only high-tech use for this construction, which is GPS. Every day we have to check the change of the shapes, but this is too big and too complicated to measure from the ground. So we put 10 antenna and measure the change of shape from satellite every night to check the progress. And also I invented the membrane out of paper. It's a fire protected and waterproof membrane according to the German regulation. Next, please. And this is the completion. Next, please. It's inside. I must say this is not pure paper tube structure because I had to make many compromises structure, not because of the regulation. I tested everything and we calculated with very good engineer Bureau Happert in England, and we proved everything according to German law for the building regulation and the fire regulation. But still, the authority didn't want to allow us to build as we designed. Unfortunately, actually, this is wooden grid, which was proposed originally by Otto. It was much thinner as a kind of the element to stiffening, triangulating the paper grid shell by this wooden frame, and also using as a scaffolding the ladder for the construction and maintenance. But we are asked to make the section of this wood frame 4 times bigger than necessary, so that now the timber is working as arch. So that I must say this is the hybrid structure between paper tube and wood. Next, please. But the quality of space is as I was expecting, so I'm quite happy. This is just simple fabric tape joint, very simple. During the erection, this opened up and it's stiffening by itself. And end wall is made of a paper honeycomb board. This was first time in Germany to use paper honeycomb as a part of structure. Next, please. In order to do this, before this pavilion, I designed small the gallery for disabled child using this paper honeycomb as the triangle grid frame structure. Again, I had to test it to get the government permission, and I used this testing data in Germany. Next, please. And also, I was very lucky to get the opportunity in New York for the garden of the Museum of Modern Art to cover the sculptural garden, because I didn't have to work with the mean authority in New York. I could design exactly as I originally designed, just with the paper tube. Next, please. This is a small museum for the history of the canal in Bourgogne, Dijon, near Dijon in France. And this is a small structure covering the old boat, and also this is a small building for the institution for this museum. Next, please. And this is the first permanent paper tube structure in France. This time we are asked by authority to design the joint in order to make to change the paper tube in case if damaged. Although it's perfectly waterproof, but we have to design interesting joint. Next, please. So next, please. This is the aluminum casted joint with the wooden piece inside. When we need to replace, we just unscrew it, and this wood goes inside of the tube. Then we just remove it. So that this is the first time we designed the joint in order to replace the paper tube just in case. Next, please. And this is the institution. As usual, I don't have a big budget. And I asked my client, I want to design the exhibition as a part of the building because I want to use the exhibition as a part of the structure. Next, please. So I just went to the do-it-yourself store to buy L-shaped angle with holes. Usually you make your own bookshelf with this. I used the 2 or 4 together to stiffening each other to design the exhibitions and also the walls. And the roof is sitting on this. So the exhibition itself is supporting the roof. Next, please. This is Rwanda, 1994. After the crisis, over 2 million people became refugees. And I was very shocked to see the photo right-hand side because people was freezing with blanket. Because the UN just gave them only plastic sheet, they couldn't keep them warm during the rainy season. So I thought we have to improve them, otherwise any medical care doesn't help them. Next, please. Then I went to Geneva to meet some architect working for the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. And I was very lucky to be accepted as a consultant to develop my idea further. Because of the following reason. This is a standard refugee shelter in Africa. They just, United Nations provide them plastic sheet, and the refugees have to cut a tree to make a frame to put the plastic sheet. Over 2 million refugees cut the trees. It used to be forest, but it's all the trees gone, and so they go much further to cut more trees. So it's become very serious deforestation. United Nations once provided them the aluminum pipes, but the refugees sold them out for money because aluminum is a very expensive material in Africa, and they cut trees again. So aluminum pipe didn't work as an alternative material. That's why when I proposed using paper tube, I was accepted as a consultant to develop this idea further. Next, please. Right-hand side, this is the factory campus of the Vitra. Vitra is a very famous furniture company in Switzerland. As you may know that they have a great collection of architecture. This is the furniture museum and factory designed by Frank Gehry. Behind this, there's a seminar house designed by Tadao Ando. Right-hand side of this, there's 2 factories designed by Nicolas Grimshaw and Alvaro Siza. Further right, there's a fire station designed by Zaha Hadid. So they have a wonderful, expensive collection of architecture in the campus. My tent is the cheapest collection. And so I tested a few different types, and I made the 50 prototype in Byumba camp. Now all the Rwanda refugee came back to home, and they're accepting refugee from Congo. I went to there to do the monitoring testing. Next, please. I had to see whether this system is easy enough to be built by themselves. And also I have to see the waterproof, and also the difficult problem is the insect. They have many insects, so we have to test whether this is good enough for them. So this is the monitoring stage. Next, please. This is Kobe, 1995, after the earthquake. Over 6,000 people were killed after the earthquake. And this town, all the house totally burned fire after the earthquake. And there's the Catholic Church, And I knew there's many Vietnamese refugees in this church, and I knew minority people usually have a harder time after disaster. So I went to there to do something because I was working for the UNHCR dealing with the refugee problem. Next, please. And I proposed the priest to rebuild the church out of paper tube, but nobody believes me in building out of paper. So I commute to this church from Tokyo every Sunday, and little by little I get to know people. And also I knew that the Vietnam people was living like this in the park. And in rainy days, all the floor get wet, and in the sunny days, it's inside is incredibly hot. Also, the neighbor people try to kick them out because they afraid this park is becoming like a slum. But they couldn't move into the government temporary houses because all the house was built outside of the city, and these Vietnamese people had a job only working for particular factory in particular area. That's why if they move out from city, they're gonna lose their job. That's why they had to keep living there. So I thought we should make the temporary house healthier, but also prettier to be accepted by neighbor people to keep living there. I asked some beer company to donate their plastic beer case as a foundation. In Japan, there is two major beer company called Kirin and Asahi, and I particularly asked the Kirin company to donate the plastic beer case because the other company make a plastic beer case red, which doesn't go with color of the paper tube. Next, please. During the summer, with students, I built the paper tube, paper log house for the Vietnamese refugees. It's a double layer of the membrane with the ventilation inside, with plastic beer case with a sandbag as a weight. Next, please. And this is in Turkey, 1999. Also, they have a terrible earthquake. This is an army tent. They are no longer waterproofed. So I brought the plastic sheet. From my experience in Rwanda and Kobe, I know that the plastic sheet is really usefully used the first emergency stage of the disaster. But that time, Japan having a so-called we are having a financially difficult period, so I couldn't get money donated well. I asked the construction company to donate their plastic sheet. Usually they use plastic sheet to cover their scaffolding with their name and logo. And I brought them to distribute them. And it's very important to do this kind of public relation. Turkey, local manufacturer provided paper tube and plastic beer container free. And the children's, I work with local architect to adjust the Kobe type of paper log house with the local context and local climate. Children help us to put waste paper inside of the paper tube to make wall more insulated. Next, please. This is India, 2001. In Western India, they have also terrible earthquake. I could get the paper tube very easily locally because they have big textile industry. They make their own paper tube to put the fabric around. But I couldn't find the plastic beer container because Western side of the India, nobody drink alcohol and beer. So that my local architect proposed me to use a Coca-Cola plastic container, but I thought that is out of context. So I made a traditional mud floor without a plastic beer container. And the roof is made of 2 layers with very thin plastic inside or the local woven cane mat. Next, please. Some of them are used as a school and some of them are used as a house. Next, please. And this is the most recent project in Sri Lanka after tsunami. I'm working in small Islamic fisherman's village, south side of the Sri Lanka. All the village was totally destroyed by tsunami. And I'm using local mud brick with the furniture made of the local rubber trees, using local labor with some prefab element to construction quicker, but to give some money to the local people. And I made some roofed courtyard collecting inside outside because usually It's very hot. They are walking and eating under the shading area, under the roof. Next, please. And this was after the tsunami. And this is right now. We built 50 units already. And so we are still building it. Next, please. And this is the end of the slide. It's the paper church in Kobe, 1995. As you see, all the students came from all over Japan to help us to build this church. In 5 weeks, we spent 5 weeks to build this church. Next, please. This is the last slide. Here's the priest. He told me he doesn't want to show any icon or any symbol of a Catholic church because he wanted to use this place as a community center, not depending the religion. He wanted to invite anyone. However, I wanted to show some of my wonderful experience visiting the church all over the world. So what I did is one thing. This is the rectangular plan with the oval shape. This oval shape came from one of my favorite church in Rome, designed by Bernini, in order to define the space, corridor space in the main space with Bernini, the oval shape. This church was there until last year. They decided to redevelop the whole areas, and I was asked to design it. And although we wanted to keep this church there, because of new fire regulation, we cannot keep it. So, and we are very lucky that some Taiwanese people, they also had a terrible earthquake, 1999, asked us to donate. So we shipped over, and we are rebuilding in September. So this church is having a second life in Taiwan. And this building was meant to be temporary, but it became the monument of the city. And as you know, the architects, we love to usually make monument. And I'm not saying I'm exception, but I was very lucky to design this monument, which people love, and this became the permanent building. And I like to keep designing the monument for the people. Thank you very much.